It's amazing. I just spent some time today talking with Diane Croft again, but that session, and so we are now live on YouTube. And so I'll just mention that we have this special session with Diane Croft on Sunday, which is going to be a two-time only first half and second half event, and it will only be on Zoom. It will not be recorded, and there will be no playback. So if you want to see Diane Croft, you're going to have to be there at 2:00 on Sunday, next Sunday, and the Sunday 2 weeks later. And she will respond to questions and answers, but there will not be a playback and there will not be a recording. So
I'll make sure to mention that when I set it up on my blog, to link it so that people know to come to it rather than, oh, I'll get it later. Yeah, because we won't be there later.
It won't be there later. So that, just so that that's clear. And I will put, let's see, the MailChimp link on now on the YouTube for registration, so that if anybody that's watching this playback on YouTube should want to hear Diane Croft directly, and she's talking about God experiences in the individuation process. That's her topic. It's not exactly what her book is about, the book that Jordan and I are reading, but it's talking about her very personal and intimate experiences with God. And so be there or be square. You won't hear it if you don't attend, just so you know. Okay, and so the link is there at the top of the YouTube chat. If you want to make sure you get a reminder to attend, please do register. Okay, now welcome everyone. We're now getting well and truly into the Court of Wands. This is our fourth week of talking about it, and we've already covered the first two cards of the court, and so this is about the Queen and King of Wands. And so, Jordan, you want to say something about the King and Queen of Wands before we start?
My feeling, especially with the Wands, is I defer to that the Knight is the consort of the Queen, and that they together unite, and that rather than the Queen and the King being a couple, the King is then the invocation of the unity of them both. So that, to me, the page, Pueral or Jung, pardon the pun, Jung, coming in, Knight and Queen coming together as consorts, and then the King becomes that which you take away in total from the suit. And so energetically, there's a completion, I find, in the Wands that is different from the other three suits, because there's a confidence, a sovereignty, and an energetic simplicity to the stability of the energies in the King, I would say, is just in short.
So are you saying that the Knight is the consort of the Queen in all four suits, or only in Wands?
In all four, but I would say especially in Wands, because Wands to me are the most unapologetic suit. For example, the energy of the volcano just is. It's living earth. It's going to blow or it's going to steep. And when it goes, it does. And to me, there's an honesty from a capital N nature perspective with the Wands that is present, certainly in the other suits, but the Wands are the most bold.
Well, you're it seems you've been reading too much Rilke. or a lot of Rilke, because Rilke had a love affair with Lou Andreas Salome.
Salome, right.
And Lou Andreas Salome was the wife of Mr. Andreas. I don't remember his first name. And they had a committed relationship. But by her requirement, it was not a sexual relationship. And she was free to do whatever she wanted at the end of the 19th century.
Well, and I will affirm, not that I am reading too much Rilke, but that I have read too much Rilke, because one of my high school graduation presents was Letters to a Young Poet by Rilke. But actually, to come back to the wands with Rilke and to counterpoint the boldness of the wands would be his poem Das Panther, the Panther, because in a very short order, in under a page, you will see a majestic black panther in a cage disappear, and the power and majesty goes out of its eyes. And so Rilke has a power. Rilke has a power. So, I mean, that's a really good reference. I love that you and John, you're in John's session, because Rilke is one of my favorite poets.
Yeah. I'm a little doubtful about the knight and the queen always being in this relationship, but I mean,
it depends on
I
suppose
that's a personal choice in how you read the cards, and so I'll leave it at that. Raquel,
I will too.
Yeah, Raquel, will you tell me what your perspective is now?
I think the king and the queen of wands are two independent perspectives and energies, because they're kind of like have their own power and their own meaning, and they are even though we all have to see the tarot cards as a continuum. I think that in a sense, like the page, the knight, the queen and king, they're all like individual forces that we can understand in a more like isolated way. But the queen, I think it's a more raw but stable energy, because I think it symbolizes the element of fire in a more truthful way, because it's not the fire element in a not destructive perspective, I think, which is important, because when we go to the king of wands, it could be that fire element in a more destructive perspective. So I think it's more, the queen is more like contained in a way, but not really, because she does have like the whole element for herself.
And do you see her as the consort of the knight?
No, I don't.
Okay.
I don't see her as a consort to anyone except for herself. And I think that the Queen of Wands and the Queen of Pentacles are two different sides of a sexual expression for women. I think it's very important, and not to be seen as the sexual energy related to the male energy, which is kind of weird to say, but
no, that's not weird to say. I appreciate that perspective, because she's a natural leader,
right,
and then not necessarily connected. And she is herself.
I know that, but it's not really about being herself, but it's more about living a more raw sexual energy without actually being even concerned about moral or social demands of that sexual energy, which is kind of like, if you go to the Queen of Cups, you will see the social demands towards that woman. You know, you will see her being judged about something that she's doing. But the Queen of Wands and the Queen of Pentacles are two forces that goes on in living their own sexuality without actually being even aware sometimes of that demand, external demand, because they're actually able to create a life that they can be that sexual force without having to experience all the implications of it.
Okay.
Well said.
So Nick,
I have a question for Raquel though about
okay.
queens. When you're putting the Queen of Pentacles next to the Queen of Wands and distinguishing them from the other suits, I wonder whether the queens in the different suits can represent different stages in a woman's life or different aspects, like whether they could all be aspects of the same woman or phases of womanhood, from what you're saying, Raquel?
Yeah, probably. We all have like expressions of them, but for instance, the Queen of Swords, I think it's a more intellectual and more mind-driven type of energy. So the sexual part in the Queen of Swords is kind of like obliterated in some way. It doesn't really exist. Not that completely doesn't exist, but she's like driven by other forces. So her perspective is in another side of her life. So I think in overall development, I think the Queen of Swords is the far most cold and distant from all of the queens. Whether the Queen of Cups is more like a sexuality driven by love and feelings.
Mm-hmm.
And the Queen of Wands and the Pentacles are two different sexual forces that create stuff other than relationship or the denial of the sexual power, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll come back to
Yeah,
your
so-
point, Jordan, but let's hear from Nick. What are your thoughts, Nick?
I don't have a whole lot to say. I guess just as kind of a general statement about the court cards of the wands, without being too specific, is that I would agree with everything that everyone has said so far about the kind of willfulness and maybe determined and sovereign sexuality in the case of the Queen of Wands. But I think it's also important to note the kind of two sides of the sun, whereas, sun can be generative and create fertile land, but it's also important to keep in mind that they're in a desert. And I think that, an overemphasis on this kind of solar, maybe even egotistical energy could also create a barren wasteland.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, Gilda, did you want to talk about the?
Yeah, I would say, since I happen to have read somewhere that in reality the elements that exist here were basically earth and water. So by Raquel pairing the fire with the earth, I thought that was very peculiar, because that is earth. There's fire inside, lava. The earth is lava. So the lava comes out, and that's what the earth has inside, and outside it's got the the manifestation. So they actually are very paired, whereas the other two, as the air and the water, have different properties. So I thought that was rather interesting that she pair those two together. sexual, and I believe that there's a stability when they're queens, first, that they can exercise their specific path with greater ease, because they are seated in a seat of a power.
Yeah.
Within their being is a power. Now, whether they can be inspired by a knight where the king might not provide that particular vulnerability because he is somewhere else where he has to also respond to a powerful stability. I think those are energies that come and go. So that made me think, if the knight can inspire the queen with some vulnerable things, who inspires the king? The page? What would be the one that inspires the king to have that same occasional vulnerable stage that comes to inspire him? So that's kind of interesting.
The dakinis.
Yeah, very definitely.
But where are they? Where are they here in the town?
I'm just, they're not here, obviously.
But they got to be there too, because that's.
Well, there's the gesture piece then that can be honest with the king without losing their head.
Yeah, but there are no nubiles to
no, that's true.
Drive the fire of the king.
Exactly.
So
the king has to be fired up too.
Yeah, so Jiro, I'm not going to call on you if your camera's turned off, because I'm going to assume that it's 2:00 in the morning where you are, and you may be just listening toward sleep. So, Annabelle, did you have a comment here?
Well, I only have comments based on what has already been said. Does that relate?
Sure, why not? Yeah.
I think I'm going to be a little more intimate for one thing, but also just revealing than I've been before. Not that I haven't been sort of revealing of my life in the past, but this, both what Jordan was saying and what Raquel was saying kind of weave together for me to make this sort of arc about my life. I mean, obviously I'm not going to say everything, but there are 3 points in my life that I want to speak to. I think I better take them backwards, which is that the relationship that I'm in now has been going on since 98 as a relationship, and since, as a one-on-one male and female relationship, and we've known each other since 78. We were very good friends.
Mm-hmm.
His wife said, "I don't want you to be here anymore," in 1992. And then in 1998, we became intimate.
Mm-hmm.
He never entirely closed the door with his wife. For one thing, it wasn't his decision that they were going to part ways. They had 2 children. They now have 2 children, 2 grandchildren. And so they are a couple, but they stopped being sexual. So that was where I think was Jordan who brought up that way of like one just decides. So they are a king and a queen in a way. They were back in the day, but they, so they parted ways. So this is something that I have, I have a partner who has another partner.
Mm-hmm.
Now, on the other hand, so then I stepped back, and in 1988, I got married. So that was 10 years before that.
Mm-hmm.
At the time, I was in love with another man. But when I was proposed to, I said to the guy, let me just go talk to this man who I'm in love with, right? So I flew to Amsterdam. We sat down together. His father, the one in Amsterdam, his father was already calling me his daughter-in-law, introducing me to people as his daughter-in-law. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
I had worked for the other son. I knew the grandfather. I was part of that family. I still feel part of that family.
Mm-hmm.
That man died 91, 92, something like that. So I went to Amsterdam, we sat down and I said, look, I have this offer of marriage, but I don't really want to say, okay. And he said, well, what's in it for you, right? And we discussed it. It would be in New York, where I had a very cheap apartment. My family, part of my family anyway, was in New York general area. I had other family in Texas, but they were, right? So, and he said, and you want to have kids, right? And I said, yeah. And he said, is this guy ready to have kids with you? I said, yeah, that's the whole idea of what we would do, is we would like marry, have children. He said, well, why do it? You know, like you could come to Amsterdam, but then you'd have to figure out, you know, all kinds of things. My family would welcome you, and I had work, right? And I had a business already going, but that could be anywhere. And I was a writer, as I am now. Anyway, so I married the other guy. Well, he of course walked away, right? As soon as my daughter was born. 3 days after my daughter was born.
Oh gosh.
He just walked away. And I was so shocked. But the woman who taught the birthing class, she was like, well, he never came to birthing class. And remember when he was here, he was just completely out to lunch. So that, right? So there again, now I just talked to him at length today. He's one of my best friends. So he is my partner as the non-sexual partner. We gave birth to a child, but it's just like, you know what I mean? It was almost like an arranged birth of a child. We both have a child. His mother has a granddaughter, right? Anyway, and let me go back, because I really don't feel that I can complete this because of what Jordan and Raquel said about these characters and about the issue of being outside of the moral, social norms, and about the notions of being judged. In all of these situations, I have never felt judged about any of these relationships, except that the wife of my current lover, so to speak, he's very, very sick. We haven't seen each other in a long time, but calls me all the time. She takes care of him. Anyway, sometimes I feel a little worried about her, right? Because she doesn't like to be in the same room with me. And I wish that it could just be a little more peaceful. Anyway, but other than that, outside society or within, I don't feel any judgment. When I was 12 years old, I was raped. And I think that this even came up within this circle, right, in this Tarot group. And it's come up so rarely in my life in any sort of way. I never used the word rape for it, but they were older than me. One held me down, the other one, I was just oblivious. I have no idea, right? No experience of sexuality or anything, right? I knew that my mother was preventing women from giving birth to children, which means she was facilitating abortions. This was in mid 60s. So I knew something about birth, right? And whatever, but I had never experienced anything directly. Kissed a boy in 3rd grade, Cornelius, right? And I felt so judged. That was the main result. It wasn't the boys. It wasn't even my sense of myself. Although I did imagine in my brain, like, oh my God, I'm 12 years old. I could be pregnant. And in India, they get married at 12 years old. So maybe I should be running away to India where this would be normal, because I felt like I was out of the norm.
Yeah.
So that's all I have to say about the Queen and the King. And the King. Because the King's Knight also.
One thing that you might find useful is listening to the session we had with John Destian the other day. If you weren't there, John I wasn't. John did a session about coming together and coming apart, and the first sentence of his book is called. He says, "There is no such thing as marriage."
Right. Well.
Right. It's a construct. In nature, there is no such thing as marriage, right? That's what he is referring to. But
Yeah,
I think,
the generations before me, in my family, there was a lot of divorce, one aunt, 6 divorces,
mhm,
a lot of bisexuality. That aunt, 3 long-term relationships with women after the marriages, others, marriages splitting up because of women having affairs with women. And then my grandparents, lots of divorces. And so we're talking about in 1901, a divorce, right? So I did grow up, my parents not very happy with each other. My mother had been married before. And I did grow up thinking marriage was not a great idea. And when I
mm,
got married, it was because I was going to have a child. And one had a big party when one had a wedding. And it was really
Well,
party and child more than it was marriage.
right.
And obviously, the man I married felt exactly the same way, that he would just walk away.
If I may, Annabelle, one, thank you for the intensity of sharing that lineage of experience.
absolutely.
I mean, that story tells almost a whole epoch of the tarot and of personality and individuation. And if I may, the morality has been kind of your yoke and your more both. Is that what you hold on to? And same, that's what constricts you. And it feels almost like Jung, the quote from Jung is coming to mind, where I would attribute structure without stricture, where he says, it's not about right and wrong. The morals can go away. It's about sense and nonsense. And it feels like you've made good sense of what you simply will tolerate, resonate with, or promote in your life. And frankly, that's a really good compass. Or I will say that's a really good moral compass, that dispenses with the morals BS. I mean, morals almost always have to do with hiding the good stuff. Let's make sure you don't go and do something you actually have joy about, because that would be dangerous. But I appreciate your depth of share with you found sense out of nonsense and the pearls in the swine of the various experiences. Thank you.
So Gero, it would be great to have a European perspective on this question.
Oh my God. Where would I start?
Which town are you in?
Berlin.
Berlin.
We like what you wrote on the chat. We like that. Can you elaborate?
Oh, call it life experience, because it doesn't work any other way. I'm not sure it relates to tarot, but probably it does.
The king, you said the king gets the full card of life and has to find himself until he's worthy of the queen.
I think it's a part of masculinity. Like we have feminism, we have all this discussion about feminism, which is awesome and a great development. But there's the masculine side as well. So it's very hard to stand on your own. And yeah, it's tricky as well.
Yes.
That's as far as I would go for now. And the story you told, it's an amazing family story, and it actually reminded me a little bit of my family story, which is extremely patchworky, complicated, colorful, and it reminded me that I maybe learned my morals more from my cats or my dogs than from my parents. Maybe as a kid I just went
Gero, Mark Twain said,
makes sense. But
okay,
Gero,
clear.
real quick, Mark Twain said, the more I know my cat and my dog, the more I know people, the more I like my cat and my dog.
It's so true. It's so true.
They tell you the truth every time. They'll bite you.
I mean, it still made sense to watch all the weirdness going on. Like, it makes you a good observer. But even as a kid, you maybe think, yeah, nah, I cannot do that. No. They are all insane, you know? And then you start communicating with your dogs and your cats more. And it's a good skill in later life, like when you have a live stream and
And they answer very
I couldn't
well.
agree more. You're
Okay,
preaching to the choir.
let's retract this from a group counseling session and back to the tarot.
back to the tarot.
Okay, so I'm going to provide you with. All right.
Can I add a little?
Yeah, go ahead.
That what was interesting is the way he put it. He closes the circle, and usually the king is always the last card on each suit, and he brings it right back to the beginning with a fool. So he has the way that he's presenting his definition of the queen and so on. I like the fact that it does that. It begins again, the cycle.
Right.
But from a different level, because
I'd
it's
maybe
already
say-
he's already been king, so now he's back into the fool, but he's got knowledge of being a king.
I'd maybe
So
say
there's
that
a question of evolved passage that Giro
Closes
has
the
brought up.
Ouroboros. It keeps
Yeah,
going.
but the last
Yeah.
part, I mean, the old architectural adage is the last 5% takes the other 95% of the time. And so that king is, I love that, Giro. And now that I'm looking at the deceptive simplicity in your two lines, it's the king then has an evolved passage. There's another hero's journey that's consolidated into that last wisdom move, rather than coming to be wise of how he enacts in the arrows what his life actually is. Full on sovereign.
I think it's true. I think maybe in the tarot, to me, it's you have two circular movements. You have like the Great Arcana, the archetypal movement, and I mean it's a circle. You end up, with the Eon or whatever, but you start basically where you end up where you started. And
Right.
I think it's true about the universe as well in many, many ways. And in the suit cards, you have that as the small human version of that. So you have the king and the queen, and they relate, the feminine, the masculine, and it closes the circle.
Essentially what we're saying is
so few cards.
Yeah, essentially what we're saying is you have to have all four experiences, and in both genders. And the question is, how can you envision yourself in these situations? Jordan, you had a comment on the chat here about the queens, so you want to make your point about that?
Oh, yeah, just some real quick sidebar marginalia about the queens. The queens are each the Empress's elemental expression of how it comes across in our lives. So you can also, anytime you have a queen, especially if the queen, for some reason in the reading, gives you trouble, or you want clarification, you can look to the family of the queens and understand that each one is treed up to be the elemental expression in your life of the Empress, as one tarot lineage thought of how energetically they connect. So just sidebar, but just about how the queens all four together as a team, as the envoys of the elements, come from the Empress.
Okay, so now I want to go on with some of these other decks so that we pull this thing back into the tarot specifically. But let's keep in mind that the idea with the tarot is to put yourself in an imaginative way into the scene so that you can experience that imagination, and in turn that will initiate certain aspects of your own psyche. I think that's one way of thinking about it. And so I'm going to share the She-Wolf Tarot first. And this is the Queen of Wands in the She-Wolf. I don't see any wands there, but we'll go with the flow for a moment. Okay, so here's what Devani Wolf says about the Queen of Wands. Pisces and Aries is what she says. And then the keys: having vision, passion, identifying direction, balance, frustration, and intolerance. And then her artwork illumination: levitating Mars and Neptune. A woman directly engages us with her crown of fire. A simple composition to focus the attention straight at her, the queen of this element. She possesses the watery, mysterious undulations of Neptune, governing dreams and psychic abilities, as well as the combative, acute gaze of Mars. The light reading is: this queen possesses a spiritual pride that hasn't quite come into balance. She represents the kind of person who has such a strong, fiery personality that we become pulled into her gravity. For better or for worse, she is trying to figure it out, but the opposing forces of water and fire limit one another. Flames are doused time and again. It can feel hard to get anywhere with this stop-start energy. When she comes to us in a reading, we are encouraged to be humble and not prideful. We are guided to find guidance in dreams. If scorned, we are led to assess our resentments. Bitterness is not the course. And the shadow side, the heavier aspect of this card is Mars, the planet of endless red deserts and tornadoes, much larger than any on Earth. We may be feeling overly combative right now, completely intolerant to the folly of others. Conversely, we may be having trouble keeping our flames from going out. Sadness may be wetting the fire, depressing our energies rather than invigorating them. It may be wise to feel through the sadness, as it always beneath hot anger anyhow. And the mantra: I exude patience and love even when it is very difficult. Okay, comments about this card?
Pisces and Aries, very difficult combination to see in this card for me.
Mm-hmm.
Neptune and Mars, also very difficult combination. But I relate to what the book said about the meaning of this card, because I've done a lot of astrological charts for people that actually has a sun in the sign of Aries and in a Pisces ascendant. So I see the struggle that the book said that lies within this card, like the internal struggle.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's really specific. Maybe for me, maybe too much. And I think that the two worlds that Jordan is making comments in the chat, I thought that even though her arms are outstretched, but the worlds are coming down, and the triangles are up. So I think it's a really difficult combination to understand, because Pisces is driven for everybody else and for the world, and to just give and be empathetic to everyone and everything else. sacrificing themselves, and Aries is the opposite. So it's really difficult.
Okay, so your worries are about this specific card.
Yeah, I think it's too specific. This card is only for a few people.
Yeah.
Well, no, Raquel, I agree, because Aries is I act, and Pisces is I believe. And you make a wonderful visual language point of the triangles moving upwards. Her arms outstretched are wands, but in a sense, they're magnetizing these worlds to not rise, to stay in place while she's levitating because she's resonating. And then there's this radiation above. But I think you really hit on something with the difficulty astrologically of Pisces and Aries together, because they're both stubborn in their own particular ways. Aries is going to act, warring tendencies, and Pisces is just going to flow, and even if it just doesn't need to care, it's just going to. So there really are an opposition of energies occurring here that creates a tension. I'm glad you brought up the Aries Pisces piece, because the visual language, and now that you mention the triangles, I'm going, wow, that's
to the sun, right? And then
yeah,
the two major planets, because Neptune is a very difficult planet for you to just, put it to the ground,
yeah,
like,
it's good
to
luck. It's
master
like
it and
trying to
just,
hold
like,
water.
go down. It's really difficult.
It's almost like putting water in your hand and expecting it not to drip. That's impossible. I mean, so putting Neptune down is the same way in the other direction. And I just noticed the purple with the white on top pyramid triangle. That's the alchemical symbol for fire or for air, because the line across horizontal is the air that goes for the pure triangle of fire. But these are three different versions of that Aries energy, and how in three different ways the fire that requires no wood stays aflame. You really brought up kind of an encyclopedia of stuffdance with the Aries Pisces, because there's a really solid tension to explore the way this card expresses that.
Okay, other comments on this card?
I think Gilda wants to say something.
Okay, Gilda, speak.
I think that, and I agree with the Aries Pisces. It is extremely common. I have it. My mother has it. My brother has it. I mean, it just goes on and on. That she's bringing, what she's doing is that the Neptune is reflection, and the fire is the intuitive way of acquiring that reflection, and to blend the two is what she's trying to do. Have that reflection, not only reflect, but to be able to bring it forth. So, and it's obviously that she's using Aries as the connecting card for this queen, to initiate that combination of intuition and reflection, to bring it together.
Mhm.
But it's just she's still trying to balance it. But she is the connector. She's trying to connect that.
Yeah, and of course she's wearing a talisman, which is the Ankh, which
Oh, it is. I couldn't see that. Yeah,
Yeah,
she's
it's-
trying to connect that. Yeah.
it on her necklace here.
And the Ankh is derived from an abstraction of the yoni, or the sacred vagina.
Yeah, but I thought that the Ankh also had masculine in it, which it does.
It does have both, because it is a symbol of everlasting life. So there has to be both for life to be everlasting. You're definitely right on that.
Right. Okay. Let's. Are there other comments, or let's move on to the next one?
And I would say that the three triangles, represent then the three queens. So she did not leave out the other ones, except she chose to display the fiery aspect of intuition, bringing in the reflection. Neptune is about reflections with water, but sometimes it just stays there, and the fire refuses to allow it to stay there. So that is her job, I guess, to be able to move that water into a place where it's active.
Yeah. Okay. So let's move on to the Starman Tarot. Again, the Queen of Wands here. Quite a different queen, of course, is normal for this. Oh boy. Try to get the whole picture in. Okay, the Queen of Wands. I gracefully take center stage, quote unquote. Queen of Wands is a force to be reckoned with, bold, daring, courageous, and extremely vivacious. Highly versatile and talented, she is passionate about the world. She lives in and the domain she lives in, about the world she lives in and the domain she rules. She sees the needs of her people are a paramount importance and does her very best to envisage powerful solutions, thereby highlighting and pursuing many just causes. I created this card thinking about the powerful feminine visionary, a beautiful balance of head and heart, flanked by a court of transfigured Minoan mother goddesses. She symbolizes the power of the feminine principle to give life, reminding us to speak with the fire of passion and the integrity of the heart. The radical anthropologist Chris Knight puts forward a powerful argument that women were key to our human mastery of complex language, that it was the deep connection of women regularly coming together at the time of their cycle and their development of complicated systems of herbal medicine used, for example, in childbirth, which catalyzed the complexity of interpersonal communication. The power of words to create our reality emerging from our female ancestors. A fiery and spirited mother, she encourages her children to be bold individuals, ambitious and discerning, to speak up and act on their feelings. The Queen of Wands wears a Union Jack petticoat beneath her skirt, a playful reference to the earthling artwork I created for Bowie, in which he wears the Alexander McQueen Union Jack coat. The emblem of Britain, it's prolifically and provocatively used across music and fashion movements in the last 50 years. Similarly, she is the visionary designer, the unapologetic experimenter, eclectic, charismatic, and supremely confident about freeing people from their normal perceptions, routines, and habits. Flanked by two Black Panthers, fierce guardians, and the symbol of the mother, the dark moon, and the power of the night, these totem animals encourage us to understand the power within shadows, to pierce the veil of darkness, face the unknown, and discover the field of pure potential. She welcomes you to expand your awareness, affirm yourself, and be resolute, taking the time to consciously nourish your self-confidence and self-esteem. It is time to remind yourself of all those past successes and triumphs. Harness that get up and go attitude and audaciously take center stage in your life. Reversed, an overbearing, domineering, manipulative temperament has been adopted to get your own way. Designing for a number of years within the music business, I experienced how the creative ego that shines when taking center stage then craves highs outside of the arena unless grounded in nourishing relationships and routines, integrity, that inner sense of wholeness can be easily lost in the pursuit of fame and fortune. Okay, comments on this card? I mean, I really like this description, personally, but
I do like it as well. And I think that out of the different, all the queens, this is the queen that benefits most from support, to have that fire aimed in order to, that, and she has a support back there. She has some, but where some of the other queens sometimes in their element are already supported, the fire element needs support to be able to function on Earth.
right. Other comments?
Compared to that that deck you showed us, Skip, that was only signs instead of symbolic meaning, that tarot that you bought.
Right.
This is like a symbolic barf to our faces, right? Because this is, again, too much.
It's too much. The image is too much.
Yeah.
And, I appreciate that comment, because I do think that these particular images of the Starman Tarot are over the top, as David Bowie always was, of course. But I really love the descriptions that have been written here. I really like the way he's addressing the balance of the Queen of Wands here.
Yeah.
Other comments?
I especially like the way that a lot of times you find the Queen of Wands with a little black cat here or there. And here he's put 2 black panthers. And that is really very even more descriptive. And I couldn't understand why they were there. And it's because of the darkness, that the fire lights up the dark.
Mm-hmm.
So she is connected to the dark in ways in which the other card that we just saw that tried to bring in the reflection of the water,
Mm-hmm.
perhaps it's the depth of water, but here is the depth of really deep things that you can, once you flick the light, something else takes place.
And of course, you have the 2 snakes in the boots, and the iguana between her legs.
And the broom.
And the broom,
Yeah.
versatility.
Oh, the broom, yes.
Yeah, she's extremely versatile.
Right.
So that's why she needs support, because she's got so much going on.
Right. But I suppose if you're reading from this deck, at least you have lots of choices about what you're going to say.
Absolutely. I'm curious to know what that image, there is a sunflower above her head, but there's like a star shaped, but 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 or 10 points, maybe 11. It's a different type of star,
Right. I think it's 9, but I'm not sure. Anybody, Jordan, do you know what that reference could be? A 9-pointed star?
A 9-pointed star. Hold on. Could you drop the image down just a little bit?
I cannot, but I might be able to make it bigger and drop it down.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, there.
Yeah, and the 7-pointed star is an alchemist star.
Right.
And
that we know.
And that we know. But the 9-pointed star would, if I drop into Japanese meditation, would be the Nen, N-I-N, or the Dao, D-A-O. And it would be the final cycle of life that is complete, because Nen is the last in the 9 kanji meditation hand gesture symbols in certain Japanese meditation symbols. So I would say with a 9, I haven't thought about this. This is just off the cuff.
Well, and
But the
now,
9-pointed
The
star
enneagram.
might.
now I'm
That's what
seeing
I think
12
is the
points.
enneagram. He reads my
Well, and then
thoughts.
if it's 12 points, then it's going to go to the Empress, because then that's a 3. 1 + 2 is 3. So that would be that from which all emanates universe of the Empress sunflower, if it's 12 points.
Right, because here's 1, 2, 3 there. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And over here again, 1, 2, 3 points. So it's 12-pointed star.
Yeah, and so then you have a zodiacal star.
Mhm.
It's kind of almost a free-form sextile, if you will, of the way the relationships astrologically. Raquel may want to speak to this too, but with the 12, then you have a very zodiacal star, a zodiac of a star. But except instead of going round in a circle, you have an interdependence and interrelationship connecting them all. So there's I guess, Jung, the acausal connecting principle, synchronicity. There's a connection in a 12-pointed star that might not be present elsewhere.
Right. And so before we go on, I just want to point out that we are looking at the Queen from the Starman Tarot, which is written up and designed by David and Esther DeAngelis. And the earlier one was the She-Wolf Tarot by Devani Wolf. That's this one. Okay, I'm going to go back now because we have a couple more to look at.
So is that a 9-pointed star or 12?
12.
It was 12, yeah, and I appreciate the 12. That I actually have never seen a 12-pointed star. That's a really cool construction. I mean, and also I think, well, wow, how obvious. How have I not seen that? And
Check this out. You guys will appreciate this.
Oh, there you go.
This is 12 points.
oh, there you go. Look at that with the threads.
Good for you.
Yeah.
Oh, nice, Nick.
Nails and
Can you hold up a little closer?
Wow. Terrific.
Yeah, look at that. Spirograph's got nothing on you. That's really no, seriously, that's strong.
Yeah, that's cool.
Gero
Did you
also
just do
has a
that?
necklace about it.
Raquel, go
yeah,
ahead.
the necklace.
Gero has a necklace.
Oh, let's see. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
How
Yeah,
about
that's
that? Thank you, Gero.
Long story with that necklace.
Uh-huh.
Long story.
Interesting. You want to share it or not?
It's a bit of a family gift, and it was in the desk drawer for a long time. And a few years back, I pulled it out and then made sort of an art piece out of it. And since then, I'm wearing it.
Ah, cool.
Short story.
Right. Well, of course, Jung believed that, things came in 3s, 4s, 7s, and 12s. So,
Yeah, I think I need to evolve a little bit because I just have my alchemist's earring that I haven't worn in 20 years. I mean, it's 7 points.
Funny thing is, right when I did that thing, made it an art piece, it popped up everywhere. Like it popped up in a movie I saw.
It always happens.
It's on the tip of my tongue, and then I go to YouTube, and there's like I've a documentary about Battlestar Galactica, and it's a fan theory, and I'm drawn to it because I like fan theories, and it starts like I click into it, and 5 seconds later it's exactly that symbol. So since then I've tried to figure out where it's actually from, and not sure. Still not sure.
I like that. I mean, I had yellow car syndrome. There were no yellow cars in the world. In 2005, I went to buy a car. It wasn't going to be yellow. It was going to have 6 speeds, a turbo, lots of foot, and a convertible. I didn't care the color. And as a single male, prone to drive up a telephone pole if I look at the wrong beautiful feature on someone, then the insurance was going to be hella. And I walked into the dealership and there was this little Euro trash looking Chevy Aveo of all things. It was like a Volkswagen Rabbit that went on a diet. But I'm like, look at that yellow. I have to have it. and I swear on the way home, there were no yellow cars on the way to the dealership. There were at least 35 to 50 yellow cars on the road on the way home. They just all came out of nowhere. And so it was, until I could see it, until I had seen it, I couldn't see it.
Right.
And then it appeared everywhere.
Gilda, you have your hand up.
Oh, that was a while back. Sorry.
Oh, okay. If you stand on ceremony in this group, you will never be heard, as you can hear from Jordan's overriding laughter.
Speaking of which, I'm gonna mute.
So
okay, so I really like that deck, and I have it.
The Starman Tarot.
Yes,
Uh-huh.
it's. I think it works best when you have, let's say, a black cloth when you put it down, because it's so busy.
Mm-hmm.
That if you have it under anything else, when you put it out, it blends with the other busyness, and then you can't really read you can't concentrate on what all the features that it represents. But I think it's very rich, and the way they describe it is definitely a very powerful deck. Yeah. But I would have preferred having a black border around it in order to, again, for the same reason. So it's contained because there's so much of it. So when you give it a border, then it's contained and we go to it. So right. that's the only thing about it, because I tried using it and I on top of something else, a bamboo, and then it's very confusing. Mm-hmm. So that's one thing.
That's interesting. You're the second person today that's talking to me about borders.
Yes, I prefer a border on that one specifically.
Right. The other one was Diane Croft, who was talking about borders in her book. Mm-hmm. But anyway, let us.
And that's a big topic in the tarot.
Well, it's a big topic in Jungian psychology in general. Mm-hmm. So let us go to. We're going to go to the Splendor Solus deck, which Nick likes very much. And so this is the Queen of Wands, the priestess queen of living fire, unquote. And I kind of like that description personally. I'll read what Marie Angela says about her card. I am the Princess Queen of living fire, inner alchemy of the Queen of Wands. I awaken a confident power of loving kindness into your life. Dear alchemist, through me, you gain in awareness and honor, for I bring the indwelling images of your spirit. That radiant powers invigorate your consciousness. I guide the Queen's courtly role as ruler of salamanders, subtle peoples of fire. Work with us, live vitally within the fiery worlds, confronting all tyrannies, dominance, and revenge. As temple celebrant of living fire's great praise, my throne of flame is at the heart of the South, where the lion roars the cub into life and summer festivals celebrate the harvest. I preside over all ceremonies of the tree of living fire, receiving and patterning the spiritual fires of the great composition. Practice my initiatory arts. Invoke passage to new qualities of awareness. Great rituals are made from the smaller. Your daily mystic practices and self-assessments, which gradually make space for and make real the mysteries of life. When your fire burns low, turn to those liberating powers glimpsed in your finest moments. I will help you enter the temple and live well in the light and warmth of their evidence. Okay, comments there. Nick, you're the Splendor Solus man, so.
Yeah, I don't know. I wish I had something to say, but I don't.
Okay. Anybody else?
I'll comment that I really find the transition from the white border to the delicate, let's call it Audubon filigree in a way of the outside golden background border of birds and leaves, vegetables, flora, fauna, to the murky orange, to the clarity of the red within, the life within. But I back up to the murky, the space between the passage of the orange frame, and I see these monkeys with cool haircuts playing, one an instrument and the other playing with the ibis. And that story through there kind of tells a lot about the whole card in a way. I mean, thoughts, comments on that little one line allegory visually across the orange base?
That actually reminds me of the fauna here in Brazil, in my place, because the variety of birds, for instance, and the monkeys that may stole something.
Yeah, they're thieves.
I think this particular queen celebrates the birth of a lot of things, so fauna and flora, and also in an esoteric way, having that triangle above her head and the red behind her as the spatial element is the root chakra, the root, in the Star of David, when it, there's two triangles, and that one would be the Shakti going up, the feminine.
Mhm.
So it's represented in a simple way, but it's very potent because it's, the red is very carmine, and it's showing you the triangle above her, which is actually the power of Shakti.
Mhm.
And it gives life. So in this card, it represents a lot of life, that it's responsible for all the bubbling of life.
Yeah.
That's a really good point, Gilda, because also that triangle upright is the masculine symbol of fire. And if you flip it upside down, it becomes water. But your Star of David aspect is the fire over the fire over the water, the triangle over the triangle upside down. And then you get the six-pointed star. So that would be her animus,
Right.
The masculine fire in the triangle alchemical symbol in that red bar above her head.
So in a way, it's also the fire is contained in all the different layers of the framing. So it's a contained fire, which is what we were talking about before, that the queen has a certain stability that a page or a knight does not quite command.
Mhm.
So by using the frames, it points to this containment.
You make a wonderful point, because Jung says the path you do not want to go down will be where you find your force, or where you find your meaning, et cetera, whatever noun. I think I can't remember exactly the quote, but the fact that contained, as you called it, fire in the red bar is in that murky orange, that would be the path you don't want to take. It's not specific, it's not knowing. And I think that's a really smart point you've made about the contained fire, because there's a lot in just those two words of fire contained, because you can't catch fire.
And actually there's more to it now that I look at it. See, if you go up the chakras, the first one is red, so that's her background. Then the next one is orange, which is around the sexual organs, or in that secret place. And then the solar plexus is yellow. So these frames are in that order. So by the time you get to the yellow, the willpower has actually manifested some life. Because
That's a nice track.
Because it's contained. So I just noticed that they use the colors of the chakras to get to the different levels. So that's really nice. And also the green behind her, like a tree, is the opposite of red. So it means that it's also her red is rather integral when it's at its raw form, and then it splits into red, orange, and yellow.
That's a great track. Thank you for that.
Okay, let's.
If it has anything to do with the strength card. I'm also wondering what's this that's down on her feet? What's the bluish grayish object?
Good question. I don't know.
It looks like there might be a face on it, like it's one of the monkey's heads. Maybe.
Oh wow, Nick, look at that, because that's almost, look at the, it's like a llama coming in from the left with this big old neck, and then there's this face with literally a smile, two eyes like koala bear ears. I've never seen, I haven't seen that part. So look at the face of the underworld. I mean, or the face below. Is her foot on it? Like the Chinese symbol where the dragon has its foot on the earth or the world.
Yeah, and that's not
wow,
even,
I haven't noticed that. That's nice eye, Nick.
yeah, that's really hidden in there when you're actually looking at the card. It's hard to see, but
Yeah, you're drawn to the red and all the other focus, but that's a really refined, subtle world in that just section of the card.
Right. And what's
it's got a red in the forehead. It's got something red, you see?
I think that's, I think those are her slippers on top of it.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Oh.
That's her toes.
Okay.
That's
she's
her
stepping
toes.
on his head. Okay.
Yeah, her red sock
what
toes.
is the green here, Nick? Is this the tree of life, you think?
That's a tree.
I mean, it's probably a reference to what the alchemists, rather than calling it the tree of life, they call it the philosophical tree.
Right.
But it's the same concept.
Yeah.
Oh, so this animal is like an altar or what?
I think like Nick started out the strength card. That's another lion. That's another animal. That's another inner instinct that she's harnessed. And when you zoomed in, there was a 5-pointed watery star on her necklace pendant.
This whole time I keep wanting to say, and I don't, maybe you guys can help me contextualize this independent of the fact that there's just a bunch of red in the card, but my mind keeps going to blood, lifeblood, fire in blood, like electricity pulsing through blood. And she also seems to be pregnant.
Yeah, she does.
Yes.
You can tell that to a tarot card. And you can't tell
inside
that
of the skirt, there's also like the same shade of red. That's
right. And an essential idea in Jung, particularly in the Red Book, is that all change comes with blood. Okay, in other words, the red can represent war and also blood, of course, but nothing changes without blood.
Well, and Skip, to that point,
say is that just like to round out that strand of associations is maybe she's pregnant with possibilities.
Yeah.
Oh, and Skip, to your point too, the blonde, the golden hair, the golden thread, as it were.
Right.
And then what is this golden 6-tentacled calamari making looking thing in her hand?
It's a crown.
Is it a crown?
It looks like a crown.
It looks like that, but it's a very, very abstract crown.
It's very organic. So it seems to be alive. It's almost like there's a crown within like this tentacled being upside down in it almost.
Now,
Right.
I was sure that silver star, it looks incongruous there, almost like it was put there after the whole thing was painted. Because it's not, It's a different color, doesn't go with anything. It's not related to the drawing in any way. So it seems like it was planted there sometime after.
So would that be the intentional mistake? Basically, let's make sure, okay, we got the card, it's perfect. Let's now go vandalize it.
I don't know. But
Skip, maybe this is clear on your version of the screen, but it looks to me like the piece of her garment that goes off of her arm says something like I can maybe make out loss, LOS, something. I don't know if it's any clearer.
Oh, in the banner. And look at there's language in the banner.
Yeah, I can't see it.
Or locus.
Yeah, so the star is completely unrelated to anything in the entire card.
It also overlaps the clavicle crossing fabric, as if it's on top of it. You're right. It's almost like it's vandalism. I mean, it's let's add something that Sesame Street. Which part doesn't belong with all the rest of them in a way?
Okay, well, while all of you are talking later, I will quickly look through the Splendor Solus and see if I can find this actual image in the Splendor Solus.
Yeah, good call, Nick. See if
Because
there's
this
message
is
in the
taken
banner.
out of it.
I could be completely off here, and
I saw
probably
LOC.
has something to do with what I've been going through with school and stuff, but something in me say that it might say Los Meninos.
Los Meninos, or I saw maybe LOCU, and then I couldn't make out the rest of it, like locus or something.
Yeah.
And what does Los Meninas mean? Or Las Meninas from Spain, or?
It's a painting, but it's
right.
it means the ladies in waiting.
Okay, we're looking at the here. We're looking at the Fifth Element tarot, and again, this is. Well, wait a minute. Yeah, this is the Apprentice of Fire in the Fifth Element of tarot. So they use the Apprentice as equal to the Queens in other decks. And
can Nick speak? Are those three Hebrew characters in the golden orb?
They all seem like they're. I mean, the top right one is pay, and then going counterclockwise from there, it's calf. I don't know what this one is, but I would imagine it's tet, samek, shin. I don't know what that one is, and then oyen, and then resh. But yeah, those are the 7 planets. No, actually, they're not.
Well, that actually starts to make sense with the staff in the middle, with the priestess scepter, crescent moon, and then the verbiage vertically up the staff with the orb underneath the crescent moon.
Okay, let me give you their interpretation of this. This card indicates a time of great revelation and wisdom within which to inspire your creative pursuits. And your creative pursuits are conduits for gaining deeper insight into your spiritual path. The Apprentice of Fire embraces the sacred and steps into the circle of conscious co-creation. Let fire be your creative passion as part of the whole of creation, and know the power you hold in the circle of light. Okay, that seems consistent with the Queen and the things we've been saying.
Can you zoom in? Seems to be writing on the staff that holds the, right there. You see it's got writing right there.
Yeah.
Symbols.
Symbols, I don't know what they mean, but there they are.
Mm-hmm.
And the description is rather sparse. But anyway.
So writing, I guess, is part of something that is hidden in this card, that it is obviously important, whether it's hieroglyphics or however you write, but writing or symbol through the mark of writing obviously is here the center of what causes the the new whatever it is to rise.
Right.
They're written obviously, and then you've got the, so writing in this I see this card as using the element of fire and initiative through the word.
That's a good point, Gilda, because I mean the imagistic writing, or the hieroglyphics, as it were, if you break it down to say imagistic writing differently, that glyphic, that symbol language, keeps the visual story going without words, without letters, and keeps implications happening rather than specifically saying any given thing, which keeps it dynamic. And that circle of light, as Skip read in the text, would then track back to that.
Okay, I want to move on to the Kings, because I'd like to finish the Court of Wands this week.
Finally, after 3 weeks, this
is the fourth week.
Fourth week.
Yeah.
Time flies with energy and fire.
And so, welcome, Tace, to
welcome, Tace,
our Zoom session. And it's unless you open your camera, we won't call on you. So anyway, so this is the King of Wands in the She-Wolf deck. Quite a king.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so here's what she says.
Wow.
Scorpio and Sagittarius. Key, spirituality, Kundalini, unfolding, mastery. Artwork illumination. A woman bearing the 7 chakras, including Sahasrara, the crown, as represented by a lotus, stands in serenity between a very large moon and sun. Before the celestial bodies coil 2 magnificent king cobras, framed by a crystal landscape. As with the serpentine fire tarot, this card illustrates the essentials of Kundalini, the serpent, the chakras, and the crystallization of consciousness. All of these symbols point toward spiritual awakening to awe-inspiring, life-changing levels. Kundalini is the Sanskrit term for coiled, describing the goddess Shakti merging with her counterpart Shiva in the union of consciousness. In real life, this is a wild, incredibly intense, sometimes spiritually violent experience that completely changes a person forever. If awakened properly, with preparation and guidance, Kundalini can lead to the highest expressions of the spiritual self. If awakened spontaneously or recklessly, the powerful energy can wreak havoc and be quite damaging. Both Scorpio and Sagittarius have their wholesome elements, and they both house destruction. The solar Pingala aspects of the awakening can burn too hot, and the lunar Ida can freeze. The Kundalini must rise through this central channel, the Sushumna.
Sushumna.
Sushumna. Yeah, Sushumna, in order to remain balanced. The serpent itself embodies wisdom, but also has a strong bite and debilitating venom. Overall, the duality is quite strong here. Light. The path of spirituality is a knife edge between abysses, says Aldous Huxley. We could almost end the meaning of the card here and allow the sentiment to sink in. What does that quote provoke? What visions come to mind? When this king comes to us, we are invited into the most powerful, heavy, intense, and potentially enlightening passage of our spirituality. With the fire of the serpent within us, we can go to the edge of the universe. Our infinite nature is self-evident and our abilities increase. We must be aware of the prices of these increases. But if we handle them correctly, we will be fine. We will be fine. Magic will unfold, and our role in the process of manifestation will become clearer. Our oneness with the cosmic void will be understood. Shadow, the swiftness of fire and its ability to consume is the danger with this king. As we become more and more broken open by spirit, we inevitably become more and more sensitive. Not delicate, but we may not be able to engage in activities we once did. If we are overzealous, becoming entranced by all of the gifts imbued to us, our greediness will be paid with spiritual suffering, psychic breaks, mental imbalances, emotional sickness. We must take it slowly and be grateful. The spiritual road is not an easy one, and we should not take it lightly, least of all the power of the Kundalini. Mantra, I walk the spiritual knife edge with care and reverence. Okay, comments?
Can you zoom in? Is there a yellow dot right in her yoni?
There's a red
Yeah.
dot in her yoni, and then the rest of the chakras above.
Okay,
Yeah.
I get to see. Okay, I'm saying what
Yeah.
is?
Yeah, if you zoom in, she
Yeah,
has all
okay,
the color.
she's got
Yeah.
all the chakras. Okay,
Yeah, they're all there. There's
okay,
the red, the orange, the
yeah,
yellow,
good to
the
see it
green,
before.
the
Okay,
blue, the purple, and the magenta.
Yeah.
Right?
You know what I see? It struck me. I was like, well, where's the king at first? And so there was a trickster image of how is this king a king? And then it came to me the lotus that grows out of the mud and Lilith and her feet grounded in the sacred inner splendor that's gold, or the golden inner splendor. She's the sacred mud, but then the lotus grows off her head, that the king is actually only that flower, that fuchsia lotus flower at the top. And Colleen's comment of her concept of no rootless flower comes to mind, that king is so wholly connected to that from which he grew from, that this would be a connected king of wands king and not a hubris or egomaniacal tyrant of a king. This is a very king that is connected to nature. I see the king only as that flower piece on top of her head. That's the lotus growing out of the sacred clay of, like Lilith, in this card as a thought. Just a sliver of a thought, because it's kind of a stretch but the card felt to be a little trickster. Where's the king? I thought.
Aren't the cobras called king cobras?
Yes, they are.
They are. They
There
are.
you go, king cobras, the cobras, and there's two, so they're united.
And they're phallic.
And they're
Yeah.
phallic. And they
Mhm.
also spread and transform. When they engage, the hood white stretches out. Otherwise, they just look like any other serpent.
Not sure I would interpret them as phallic there, because I think they stand for the Kundalini.
Mhm.
And they
That's a good point. Yeah,
and
the
they
coil.
they are matched to the sun and the moon.
And there are
to
actually
the
four
male and the
cobras.
feminine.
There are four cobras. There are.
I mean,
Two
probably
there.
both associations are there, like the phallic is there as well, but it's more a balance.
Yes, but not only because there are two cobras that like coming from more attached to the ground instead of being upright.
Both, yes, to both of you. Kiro, that's a great point, that one from the lunar and one from the solar, that they are the coil, the Kundalini, as Skip read out the text.
It's like the king or the figure. It's like gravity, like the sun and the moon. They are holding her in place, or him. And if that would be there,
together.
Well, her body
she
represents
would
the
immediately
central
fall
channel.
down because she doesn't have grounding. I mean, I see it as you, like it feels grounded in a way, stable, but only because of this polarity.
Yeah, it's holding
Not that
her
she was-
magnetically in place, right? The
It's a
Jewish
central
calendar comes to mind. I mean, the Muslim calendar is lunar, and the Jewish calendar is solar and lunar.
Well,
And
she has the Ida, she talks about the Ida and the Pingala. There are two sides next to the central channel, next to our spine. And the central channel runs along in the very center. So one is lunar and one is sun. And she has chosen to use the central, the body of the human, of the female, as the central channel where the energy meets and rises. She made mention about the Shushuma, which is a central channel, and the Ida and the Pingala are each, she represents them very clearly there, the sun and the moon and the snake, coiled snake, that both have to rise at the same time. They both come together. So that's why the snakes are rising both same height, because they both need to go inside the central channel and rise in order to create the lotus up here through the chakras.
Okay, just for the record, I have been through the entire Splendor Solus, and I did not find this queen in the official Splendor Solus, so it's some other alchemical image about the
Can I
same
ask
thing.
Raquel a question here?
Yeah.
Something's coming to mind here with phases of the moon astrologically to take, for example, someone's moon sign to a deeper phase. But here it feels like you have not a waxing, not a waning. There's a day sky full moon where this is full sun and full moon at the same time. Does that astrologically trigger anything for you, Raquel?
I think this card was just a smack in my face, actually, because
Which card are we looking at? I'm sorry.
the King of Wands,
Okay, the King of Wands.
the She-Wolf deck.
Yeah, okay.
Because again, it's too specific, I think, because she talks about Scorpio and Sagittarius energy. I am a Sagittarian sun, Scorpio rising, so this hit me right in the face, actually, because everything that the book said about spiritual awakening and destruction of your own house, that's complicated, but it's true. I think that the sun and the moon represented in this card are actually reminders for the person to. There's a point in this combination, because the thing is, having a Sagittarian sun and a Scorpio rising kind of gives you the ability to stabilize a little bit the Sagittarius energy, because you go through a lot of transformations that are physical, not just intellectual, because Sagittarius likes to think and likes to read, and philosophy of all sorts of stuff. But sometimes Sagittarius sun may lose track of everything because it likes to just consume information and knowledge. And having a strong Scorpio placement for that sun means that you are going to experience tragedy in a physical way, so you can bring it down, this Sagittarius energy. So I think it's just a reminder, of your own ego, of yourself and your emotions, because when you're going through the changes of life, you lose track of who you are and what you're feeling, and I think that is very important, because I think it's great that this card relates to the Kundalini experience, because I I am reminding right now of ayahuasca. I don't think that you guys already
The plant, right? The plant medicine.
had experience with that, but today is kind of like losing its meaning in some way. But if you go through that experience to drink the ayahuasca tea without knowing what is capable of doing with you, because you
Right.
go through a mind trip that is beyond comprehension, and people use it as a kind of like kind of a drug that's legal because it's a tea, but it's actually a kind of a powerful spiritual awakening that if you're not ready for it, it may get you to a psychic breakdown. So this is why it's so important to take that idea of spiritual awakening really seriously, because it's not it's a very raw and difficult experience. And when you go through that more nature side of these powers, you may see stuff that you're not ready to see, and it's very difficult to actually make sense of it all, so
Right. People who take psychedelics often come back from trips, either good or bad trips, and
absolutely.
they've seen something. And now at Johns Hopkins, they're actually using it for therapy. They're using LSD for therapy, but under strict control. And I'm not convinced, but it's not something you want to experiment with, because
Well, I will say very, very indefatigably, if you have not done your own spiritual work, quick fixes have shallow roots, and it will blast you out of the insert whatever expletive you want, water, and you will come back, and the best thing you can hope for is to become an addict to something else to try to chase down that fix. If you've been to above 15,000 feet elevation on a mountain, 3,000 feet above tree line, the air is different. It's an experience. Well, do it again if you want to repeat it. But if you have not individuated, meditated, lived your life, mastered at least one thing, psychology, architecture, poetry, being lazy, it doesn't matter. Something, something. Then you will get there. You will be terrified. And you will be terrified in the way that you can't acclimate to being terrified, because you are not comfortable with the not knowing. You do not know what is not you and what is you, and you're still too impressionable.
mm-hmm.
Especially when terrified, you learn how you can be influenced harshly and for the beneficence. And I find, especially with ayahuasca, I know some very close friends in Costa Rica, and they are shamans and they guide. But you don't just fly down there and sign up for a jet ski trip, to go in Cancun and in Costa Rica and do the plant medicine. It's not a casual affair. And there are some shamans, and it is, because now that's the marketing, and that's the, come be enlightened. It's like, oh God, everybody who wants to go to a retreat and become one with the universe, just go to Burger King and ask for, make me one with everything. That would be better. Because you won't come back broken, because it will. I think I know people who hubris, and they came back and they were never to be connected with again. I mean, there was just a dulled, gone. They were burned because their intensity was not able to acclimate to the intensity of that. And I think this card is Raquel brought up you're talking Sag with Scorpio rising, and I'm Sag with Capricorn rising. I had the same feeling of the balance there. And so anyway, I'll get off my soapbox.
Yeah, we're running short of time here, and I want to get through a few more cards, please.
While you're moving on, I wanted to bring up something. I think it's interesting to just know the parallel. I can't remember where in some of Jung's writing, where he talks about the young woman that visited him and said, very matter-of-factly, I have a black snake coiled in my stomach.
Oh, yeah.
And he was taken by, I think I actually saw this not from, I didn't read this, but it was from his face-to-face interview or his BBC interview. But, he was really taken by how frank and matter-of-fact this woman was. And then after they worked for actually a relatively short period of time, she had this subsequent fantasy or vision or dream, I can't remember, of the snake then going up above her head and turning gold and then leaving her body, which is very much like the kind of symbology of the Kundalini experience. And it's also pretty common for psychotic people to have this experience and not necessarily have the borders to contain it in. A friend of mine who's an analyst has told me a story kind of similar to that one, mentioning somebody, a psychotic patient having a Kundalini experience with no knowledge of what that meant, but it just kind of archetypally welling up in them. And, this was somebody who was having a psychotic break. And I just think it's interesting that even people who aren't familiar with the symbolism of Kundalini and Tantra and chakras and all of that stuff still describe this experience of this overwhelmingly powerful and creative energy welling up in them as the snake rising up through the middle section of their body.
Right. That's a very interesting tale Jung tells. I think he also tells it in Memories, Dreams, Reflections.
Mm-hmm.
So let me read about the King of Wands here. I seek to change the world. This is the King of Wands and what he wants to do. Of all the kings, the King of Wands is the charismatic ruler of his people. An imposing, inspiring figure, he is the archetypal man of action with unbelievable reserves of energy, creativity, and vitality. He is masterful in not only initiating change, but applying the discipline needed to see it through to its fruitful end. The king symbolizes phenomenal inner strength, courage, and leadership, and understanding the volatility of fire is able to harness its force for the good of all. The King of Wands has always been a very powerful card for me, symbolizing the power to disrupt in a truly creative and peaceful way. His body is made from aromatic, resin-coated kindling, the heartwood found in the stumps of ancient longleaf pines, which blazes hot and bright. If well organized, it builds the foundation of something that burns long and well. The king in ancient times was perceived as a god, the crown often spiked like the rays of the sun god. This king wears a crown of thorns, an emblem of conscious humility, for his authority is rooted in the manifest world. His wand creates new forms of life, symbolizing just how powerful the human imagination is. We create our own reality. The creative process begins with generation, so don't be too quick to discard your ideas. Let things grow before you decide what must be pruned back. Working with Bowie, I was constantly reminded that every aspect of a design or artistic creation contains the potential to be a game changer. I experienced him as phenomenally disciplined, relentless in keeping the integrity of the vision, able to zoom in on a detail that would be seen as insignificant and coax something significant from it. At the same time, I was struck by how affirmative and generous he was to others, encouraging them to shine despite being phenomenally busy and constantly in demand. Likewise, the King of Wands is a mentor to those around him, especially his children. Coaching them to reach their full potential is of supreme importance, whatever his work schedule and obligations. His world is exciting and action-packed, and he will encourage his children to use their initiative, take risks, and go out and explore the world. This, for me, is the essence of leadership: to be totally committed and direct in your purpose, and at the same time giving others the opportunity to be fully birthed as the person they carry the potential to be. Reversed, the king may be channeling too much fire and given to argue, dominate, and create drama all around him. He has become absurdly arrogant and authoritarian, critical and unforgiving. He doesn't encourage other people to flourish. Rather, he micromanages and puts everyone on edge. Creativity is stunted. Remember to play your highest game in life, but always maintain a sense of humility and be willing to learn from those around you. Everyone is your teacher. Okay, comments on this card.
I like this card because it looks like an indigenous man.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And the wand that he has on his hand, the babe, the fetus actually has it as well. Here at the bottom.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a weird, I'm struggling to call to memory exactly what it is, but I want to say that I've seen images of the moment of when a sperm reaches an egg. There's like a flash of light that happens, like a very quick surge of electricity is given off. It almost looks like this card is like a picture of that occurrence. Like there are all the babies and maybe in like an embryonic sac, or maybe not even at that point, they're just but either way, there's all go ahead.
I think it's a huge reference to 2001 Odyssey in Space. It's like
surely
so much a match in the imagery, and it would fit to Bowie and the whole Starman mindset. So I think it's a direct reference as well.
Well, Nick,
which opens up a lot of interpretation in itself.
Yeah. One thing I would say is that you have the king here, but you're also seeing what's in his imagination. And we all always have lots of things going on in our psyche. And so anyway, that's a point.
Well, Nick, it's amazing that you, after we get off this card, I want to hold something up to the screen. I'll wait, but your concept of the sperm where it blasts a radiated light, there's a woo kind of light that emanates. And this morning, one of my doodles was just that, where it was the sperm and the ovum both carry the scrolls, the sacred ancient scrolls of our DNA. And I just stopped right there and drew something. But when you brought that up, where there's that blast of light, that radiation of light, I was going, wow, look at that synchronicity. I drew that this morning. So
yeah, I mean, it looks like it's in some way trying to say it's like the king is ushering souls back into this world or something down the tree of life. Yeah, behind everything there.
And
maybe,
then
maybe that's
the guy, yeah,
weird, but anyways.
well, no, yeah, and the guy in the front, and then you get the divinity behind him. So the shadow is forward, the full-on logos. I mean, the shadow is visceral; you can touch it, kind of thing. Whereas the energetic light behind is what's driving it, what's constructing it, what's creating it, and you can't have one without the other. But your notion of the sperm with that, it's like that one blast. It feels like this card is like an articulated or differentiated version of that one moment.
Yeah. Interesting comment that Manuela has just made. She says, funny fact, it's actually not so funny fact. Europeans conquered South America and killed almost all the native population. Now their descendants came here looking for ancient and native population. Yeah,
That's a really good irony point. Yeah, it's like, okay, we forgot we killed everyone. We're going to come back and see if there's anyone left. So what are they going to try to do it again? I mean, it's
looks like Giro's got
it's
something
actually
to
worse to get cured. Sorry, Nick.
No, you're
no,
good.
go.
It looks like Giro has something that he's busting to say.
No, I was just going to to amend what Manuela said in the chat, that Europeans come here to get a cure for something, whatever, spiritual cure, for something that they created.
Right?
Eternal
Yeah,
life.
that's a good point.
It's
That's
a full
really
circle of
good
karma,
point.
actually.
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
Talk about denial. It's like,
Okay, moving on.
Can I
I'd like-
comment about the king?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I think that is very interesting when compared to the queen, who is centered, and she is actually, the queen is centered and he's off-centered. So he's off-centered because he is, and behind him is what is centered, the creative process that actually arises and becomes manifested, and he's almost just like the agent that makes it happen, whereas the queen is right smack in the middle, which is the manifested form of the fire energy coming to fruition. So we can experience it. So it's almost like an egg that's busy coming alive because of all the lines on the side, but he is not centered. He's to the side.
Yeah, the king always says, "Oh, I've got it. Now I'm going to run off and do it," and he hasn't got it at all.
He's the conduit for what's coming next. So again, is that that Gero mentioned, that it looks for the fool in order to make the queen happen. So he's a target. He's a moving target, trying to make things happen. He's not centered there like the queen that needs to be centered. Otherwise, she cannot manifest the physical form or whatever.
well, and let me add a counterpoint to that to go with it, just to dance with it, not to conflict with it. Architecturally, the center is rarely in the middle. The middle is in the middle, and the middle is not a living force. It's an axis, a non-existent symmetry, but there is the educated symmetry of a nucleus of a cell that migrates and travels around a cell. So the center not being in the middle, this dark character, then that's alive, that's real, that's living. But he's not, oh, I need to be aligned. Oh, no. He has his own place that he has found in the card, rather than standing over to veil the axis. He doesn't need to be proper. He needs to be alive.
Ghetto wanted to make a comment. Go ahead, Ghetto.
I think everything you say it's like absolutely amazing. I think in the middle it relates a lot to yesterday's conversation in a way. It's like the golden egg, and in the golden egg is the tree of life. I think it's the Kabbalistic tree of life in the background. You
Yeah.
know, in the middle.
Yes.
And like the king, he's not a presenter. He goes like, lo and behold, the tree of life. And that's his role. Like he just says, look, over there.
Yeah. Oh wow! You mean
That's
to present? He
about.
presents the divinity. You're saying?
Yeah, he's like the gesture.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, and look.
Yeah, look. No, I present the divinity. Like he's the maitre d'. He's the MC.
He looks more like a trickster.
He's the son of God or son of the goddess with his thorny crown.
Yeah, except he's presenting the Godhead instead of being the one in the front. He's stepping aside to reveal the divinity. That's a good point.
I find it interesting that in the Queen card, the black was used, already manifested in the two panthers on her side. And here the black is abstract with the sacred geometry of the tree of life in the back. So it hasn't yet taken an embodiment. It's abstract. So she uses the black here, abstract, and then in the queen is manifested already into an animal, a form that is ready to, is embodied. Here is not yet embodied.
Right. So that potentiality of the fool is then present in that dark tree of life you just mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry to say that I'm not feeling very well today. I seem to be coming down with a cold, so I want to draw this to a close fairly quickly. What I would like to do is read the Splendor Solus because I think they have good descriptions, and we'll call it a day for the suit of wands.
Well, then may all of us send you King of Wands energies to rejuvenate.
Yeah, well, thank you. We'll see whether I make it to Wednesday or not. But anyway,
that's a little fatal.
To the advanced reading group on Wednesday, right? So,
I was gonna say, okay, not just the day. All right.
Yeah. So we'll see. It's ongoing. I have this experience that when I'm coming down with a cold, I get a very painful spot on my skull somewhere. It's never the same spot, but it's extremely sensitive. And as this evening is going on, I have such a spot, and I know that probably tomorrow I'm going to have a humdinger of a cold. So,
are your lymph nodes swollen?
Say it again.
Are your lymph nodes swollen?
I don't think so. I had a physical today, and
check them out. You should be able to fill them.
I think we should.
Could it be
okay.
a reaction to the shots?
No.
You've already had those for a while back.
Yeah, I had those shots a long while back. Okay.
Did you look at the wrong deck today? I'm just kidding.
Yeah,
I'm kidding.
Who knows?
You looked at an unpretty deck and it just made you sick.
I mean, I have this serious round of doctors lately, so.
Okay. So you've got all your symptoms, the hot spot on the head, and you know what's going on. That's okay.
Yeah.
It's
a cold. It's a cold. It's not
to healing.
COVID.
Best to healing.
I've been vaccinated, but I've already had 2 coldies during this session, and an extra 500 milligrams of vitamin C, and I'm going to do that again. But anyway, here we go. The priest king of living fire. And so I am priest king of living fire, inner alchemy of the king of wands. I awaken an active, generous power into your life, that great ones may act on your behalf. I dwell beneath the glorious wings of the Devic lion cherub of fire. who brings new spiritual inspiration and zeal from on high. Dear alchemist, I meditate all rejoining of the broken staff, Axis Mundi, through the outrushing fiery powers of the great composition. I guide the king's courtly role as ruler of salamanders, responsible for all the subtle peoples of fire. Work with us, I invoke swift actions to ensure a voice for all. As temple conductor of living fires, great praise, I stand at the midday gate of the south, where the sun is at its zenith, and of old brightest Sirius rose at summer solstice. All powers of the tree of light of living fire flow through my orchestration. Practice my incandescent arts. You will learn to raise mystic experience to perfect pitch and sustain exalted consciousness through the power of resolve. I come to your aid when you enter a new octave of self-awareness and must rise to meet light upon light. I conduct you to radiant realizations and will help you live fully within their splendor. Okay, so comments on this card. And I note that this is not a wing, this is actually death here in life.
Well, both the king and the queen of wands were called king and queen of salamanders.
Mhm.
What is the relevance of the salamanders? And I'm at the beginning of reading Faust, English translation, of course, another element of my Jungian study along with this class.
Mhm.
And there were salamanders right at the beginning, and it just made me think of all these symbols. So I wonder what anyone who has experience with this knows about salamanders and why these two king and queen of wands would be king and queen of salamanders.
Yeah, they're part of what occultists call the elementals. So salamanders are the elemental animal of fire. There's salamanders, gnomes, sylphs, and endives, which all relate to different elements and in rituals to do with esotericism and occultism. If you want to call on the power of the elemental kingdom to do rituals involving these different magical creatures or animals. So Goethe was a Mason and knew a lot about the symbolism of elemental kingdoms and esotericism and stuff too. So all of that stuff is written into Faust.
And it was salamanders, gnomes, sylphs, and what?
Endives.
Endives like the salad vegetable?
No, I'm not entirely sure what it refers, but it's not the vegetable. I'm pretty sure that they rule over the kingdom of water, the elemental kingdom of water. But
well, and actually, the endives,
I can't profess any knowledge beyond that. I just know that that's what it relates to. But
and actually, I would say yes, the endives, the salad vegetable as well, because it's the vegetabilis or the vegetabilis, depending on how you pronounce it, of the fruit of the earth caught in between. It's not a leek and it's not an onion. It's opened like a yoni in a way. And there's that, but to then add to substantiate Nick's point, the salamander is the differentiated primitive. It is the conscious, living, current, modern primitive, that which has always passed through all. And it is loose and slippery and soft, often poisonous because of its intensity, would be the metaphor. But it's two words, differentiated primitive. And so the salamander is that which is of old, that which is of now, that which is of both, and that which you should emulate is to me, the salamander metaphor.
I apologize. It's actually undine.
Undine, that's what I
Undine.
thought.
Yeah, not endive. Sorry.
Undine. I
Oh,
call it
Undine, like the
like
Swan
water.
Lake.
Like a water nymph. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Like the Undine.
Well, I've already poured my balsamic vinegar on the salad. Now I have to go get something else to eat. No, but it's funny that I love I'll call it a Jungian slip and not a Freudian slip because I don't really like Freud very much. Turns my stomach, but
Yeah,
I like that. I like that. Yeah, I really don't want to lie down and tell anyone about my mother because I like her. So what's the problem? But that you said endive or endive, I like that because I got that the endive does that. It's that different. It's not a leek, tight and big and involved, and it's not an onion. And the Annius Nin quote comes to mind for endive, and I know it's a mistake to track the endive down. You misspoke, but I love the misspeak because the Annius Nin quote would be, there came a time when the pain to remain tight in the bud was greater than the risk it took to blossom. And the endive is kind of in that romaine middle of it's trying. It's right there open. It's not closed. It's not large. It's not small. It's there. So there felt to be actually I hate to track down the mistake, but at the same time, it felt to be actually not a mistake. I think it, to me, pulled in an example of a nice image. So thanks, Nick, because
yeah, I also just want to say, like, that's one of the strangest areas of occultism to me, in an already extremely strange area of
Justin Case makes a very good point here on this topic. He says, in very old Finnish folk songs, salamanders were seen in the sky, probably comets.
There you go, the tail.
And
that's probably comets. That's a very good attribution.
Yeah.
Early
also, the salamanders are bright red, so they stand out.
Yeah, right.
In the earth, you suddenly look at it like if it was a ruby or something. They're so red against any other color on the earth, in the water, wherever they're very bright.
Well, and the brightness is nature's, billboard to stay away. I'm dangerous, and the danger could be poison, or it just simply could be intensity, meaning make sure you attribute that in doses.
I gotta check out, guys. I'll catch you guys later.
All right. So I just want
to
I want to comment on Giro being with us at 4 o'clock in the morning your time, Giro? Okay, I understand. I have one of those here myself, but I don't have to stay up.
Someone finally beat me.
No, yeah,
and
I paid him a lot.
And Raquel, it's 11 for you, right now. It's 11 for you.
It's 11.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And
Giro, I want to say too, thank you for being here. Your perspective has been just blistering good. I mean, what a welcome addition. Thanks for coming on. I love this group.
Fun, yeah.
There you go. It's fun. We may live in the footnotes and the marginalia and everywhere else, but it's good stuff.
Yeah. Like 3 hours ago, I was like, 3 hours in, like, yeah.
Yeah.
Once you're sucked in, there's no escape.
There's no escape. I mean, never
we'll
show
be
your
on again
teeth
next Monday.
Yeah.
Tace, do you want to say anything to us? Or I guess Tace Sewell, are you here? And
quite unlikely you get rid of me. Yeah.
No,
nice. We like that. That's good.
Okay, I'm going to say
the diversity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to say good night to everyone
Good night.
because I'm not
That's
feeling too
nice.
well tonight. And
Good
I
night.
Feel
have,
better, Skip.
I have
Feel
a
better,
splitting earache now. So I know this cold is I'm going to wake up in the morning and it's going to be terrible. But anyway,
But don't
hopefully,
be don't be too snotty.
hopefully I will gobble enough vitamin C to knock it back before
Or you will
Mhm.
take your rest and start dreaming
maybe that will help.
and rest
Absolutely.
and dream and rest and dream, and that your body will restore.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I'm hopeful. So we'll see how it works on Wednesday.
Don't be a workaholic.
Yeah, I'll try not to be. Okay, so peace,
Thank you.
everyone. Thank
Good
you
night,
for
Skip.
being
Good
here.
night.
Raquel, I'll
Good
probably
night,
get
everybody.
back to you in
Thank
a
you
day
so
or
much.
two.